Now, while it's really easy to romanticize the true engineering feat that it was to build the railway, it's the men who came from around the world to build this railway that we truly have to thank. Because for them, they had their throats choking with the dust of the shattered rocks, their ears rang with dynamite blasts, their arms and shoulders were aching from swinging sledgehammers or toting rails, and their skin itched from hundreds of insects' bites. It was truly not a pleasant experience, especially in the winter. Because of the isolation on the north shore of Lake Superior, conditions in the camps north of the lake were undoubtedly the worst of any along the railway. The navvies lived like men on another planet in gloomy, airless bunkhouses, which were little better than log dungeons. Into these hastily constructed temporary structures, often badly situated and inadequately drained, between 60 and 80 men were crammed. They slept in verminous blankets on beds of hay in double-decker bunks that extended around three sides of the building. The atmosphere was oppressive and the ventilation meager. The faint light that entered from two small windows at either gable was rarely sufficient for reading or writing. The nights were fetid with steam from wet clothes that habitually hung over the central stove. In the summer, the air was rancid with smoke from brewing straw and rags set afire to drive off the maddening hordes of mosquitoes and black flies. The price of building the Canadian Pacific Railway line north of Lake Superior was appalling. By the summer of 1884, John Ross had close to 15,000 men working between Lake Nipissing and Thunder Bay, which meant that every month the company had to send a pay car out along the line with $1,100,000 in wages. One single memorable mile of track, just near Marathon, was laid through solid rock at a cost of $700,000 in 1884 terms. To save money and time, William Van Horn had 3 dynamite factories built in the Coldwell Jackfish area, each capable of turning out a ton a day. The bill for those explosives came to $7.5 million. The awesome quantities of food consumed by the workmen flabbergasted old-time traders. In winter, it required 300 dog teams working incessantly to keep the railroad supplied. The line hugged the armored shores of Lake Superior, where construction was heavy but supply was relatively easy. You see, Van Horn got around the isolation of the North Shore by importing 2 giant lake boats built in Scotland to do heavy duty between Algoma Mills and Thunder Bay. In this way, freight could be shipped by water from Montreal to Port Arthur and by rail from Port Arthur to Winnipeg. Under these nearly oppressive work conditions, the navvies turned inevitably to alcohol. By special law, the government of Canada had banned the sale of liquor along the line of the railway as far as the Manitoba border. Here in Ontario, as wherever else in Canada, government agents fought a running battle with whiskey peddlers. In May 1881, the Thunder Bay Sentinel estimated that no fewer than 800 gallons of spirits were sold every month to the 2,500 people living between the Whitemouth River and Lake Wabigoon. The price was $15 a gallon. A regular count by the CPR revealed that there were 5,000 revolvers, 300 shotguns and rifles, together with the same number of dirks and bowie knives in the possession of railroad workers on the Lake Superior line. The Northwest Mounted Police didn't do patrols in the Ontario section of the road because that was left to the local constables, but they were bought out by the whiskey peddlers, so they were corrupt. Both Peninsula Harbor, that's Marathon, and Mishpecaughton were for several months under the controls of gangs and desperados. They were called vigilantes. They terrorized citizens and held a tight rein on the whiskey trade. They kept out all other companies and ran the communities for their own personal profit.
Laying down track and building the bridges, bending our backs till the railroad